Eric Houston, the Executive Director of the Wolf River Conservancy. Let me welcome you all to tonight's lecture, which is part of our ongoing educational outreach to the community. We're very excited about sharing tonight's program featuring Jason West and Heath Lockley of Republic Services. But first, I would like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that this Saturday, the Conservancy is hosting the fourth event in our 2024 restoration series presented by Brother International Corporation, our Earth Day service project at the Shady Grove Trailhead of the Wolf River Greenway. Please see our website, wolfriver.org, for volunteer and registration information. I would also like to acknowledge all of our benefactors for 2024. They are the Crawford Howard Family Foundation, TC Energy, Bank of America, AutoZone, FedEx, the Hyde Family Foundation, Buckman, International Paper, Jim Karras Subaru, Terminex, Ring Container Technologies, Brother International Corporation, and Silvamo. Thank you for their ongoing support. Of course, all of our supporters, corporations, individual donors, and volunteers are critically important in allowing us to deliver on our mission, the protection and enhancement of the Wolf River watershed as a sustainable natural resource. As always, gifts of any size are appreciated. Please see our website at wolfriver.org/give. And finally, a few housekeeping details. We ask that you do not attempt to record this program with any device. If you have questions during the program, please use the Q&A feature and not the chat box. Our Education Director, Kathy, will be monitoring the questions and will ask them after the program. Now, it is my pleasure to present to you our speakers for this evening. Mr. Lockley received a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering at Arkansas State University and has over 15 years experience as an engineer with a focus in project management and permitting relating to solid waste regulatory and environmental compliance, landfill remediation, solid waste operations, landfill design, landfill operations, landfill gas design, landfill gas system operations and maintenance, recycling operations, and capital management. Mr. Lockley is trained in environmental personnel on company systems and standards, performed construction management, managed landfill liner cap design projects, supervised construction, CQA, and associated field activities. Jason West started as a manager trainee with Republic Services 4 years ago and eventually became the general manager for Republic Services here in Memphis. He has an MBA from Purdue, where he was enrolled in the general manager program. Before Republic, he spent 8 years at PepsiCo, and before that, 13 years with the Army National Guard. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jason and Heath.
Appreciate that. Let me get my screen to start sharing here. Okay, can everybody see this presentation now?
Great.
Okay, good. All right, so again, appreciate the introduction there, Eric. Thank the Wolf River Conservancy for having us here to talk about everything landfills, waste, and recycling. So we'll kind of get started. What do we like to do first? Just kind of tell you a little bit about Republic, and then we'll get into kind of what the agenda looks like, and we'll move on into landfills and recycling. So let's go. All right, so who we are. So our values are safe. We protect the livelihoods of our colleagues and communities. We're committed to serve. We go above and beyond to exceed our customers' expectations. And environmental responsible. We take action to improve our environment. Driven. We deliver results the right way, and human-centered. So we respect the dignity and unique potential of every person, employee or not. So just some things, like this is from 2021, so it's a little outdated, but it's kind of gives you a picture of what we deal with. So across the U.S. and now into Canada a little bit there, we got 36,000 employees, about 5 million pickups a day, and over 16,000 trucks on the road, 79 recycle centers, which I know you guys we're kind of focused on some of that today. And then we're managing over 190 landfills now. So the modern landfills, as we'll talk about, and we have 130 closed landfills we continue to manage under that post-closure period. We'll talk about that some too. And then we got transfer stations, we got community outreach, hauling facilities, landfill gas to renewable energy projects. We have 75 of those, and we're in more than 42 states now. So just kind of a overview of the company. Jason, you got anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, and I was actually just going to say too, Heath. So with the acquisition of US Ecology 2 years ago, we now offer environmental solutions that we didn't have the capability of before. So it used to be that we did not take hazardous waste. And so now with US Ecology, not only do we have the ability to take hazardous waste at certain facilities, we take nuclear waste, we have TSDFs and place underground rock fills, in-plant services. So there's a lot of solutions that we can provide end-to-end for customers. And we've expanded a lot into that environmental space now as well. And I do want to apologize to everyone. So I am still trying, but I appreciate Heath taking the lead on this. And then I'll be popping in every now and again.
Sounds good. Appreciate that. Yeah. So the goal there with US Ecology was for us as a company to be able to take anything you need to move, get rid of, recycle, and be able to manage that for the customer, for a homeowner, for whoever. It's a one-stop shop to take care of your disposal and or recycling needs. So glad we can offer that. All right. So today, this presentation overview, just kind of we'll talk about dumps of the past, what used to happen before we had this new idea of modern landfills, and we'll talk about a little bit of solid waste management infrastructure, just how the systems work in general. And then we'll dig in a little deeper on the modern landfills with design, construction, daily operations, some landfill gas to energy, which is a great way to work on that being carbon neutral, and then compliance, how we maintain compliance, how we show compliance to the state, to the normal guy coming down the street that wants to tour the landfill, what we're doing to show that. And then we'll get into recycling, what can be recycled, and kind of what our future in Republic looks like for recycling. So anyway, we'll get started with dumps of the past. All right. So before 92, most of these landfills are not landfills. Most of these were private owned areas where people would just take trash, and they may charge you, but it just wasn't a great way to manage it. So you had odors, you had all those. We still have trouble in the U.S. today with illegal dumping and how they manage their trash, and that can pose all kinds of issues, from odors to issues with emissions from that trash.
Vectors, pests.
Yeah, pests, rats, all kinds of things that people don't want around. Not to mention contaminating groundwater, which in the Memphis area is a major concern with the Memphis drinking water aquifer and the streams as well. So Wolf River would be one of those, right? So we don't want that. And I think you guys probably experience seeing even just litter in those areas. So how they mitigated that was in 92, they had what they called the Subtitle D, which EPA came out with. And what that did is regulate how and where you manage your waste streams. And what that looked like was a modern landfill with liners and systems to maintain wastewater, systems to maintain odors, systems to maintain groundwater protection standards, stormwater protection standards going into streams, and a whole gamut of other things that have come up since these landfills or have been designed this way. And that's relatively, in the grand scheme of things, when you think about it, 92, it's a long time ago, but it's not that long ago. So it's a new technology. We're still figuring out things every day. We work together with competitors like Waste Management, trying to figure out things that come up in these landfills, because this is really a new venture in how we do it. And it's a good thing. It's just things are different.
So Heath, I do want to reiterate too. So starting off, when people sometimes think of our landfills now, what they're thinking of is a dump. So a dump was literally that, just a hole dug in the ground, and people would bring trash, dump it there, and the trash would be managed, but we didn't have regulations for daily cover. We didn't have regulations for the protection that Heath was talking about, so no liners underneath. And now we have evolved to the point where you can almost think about a landfill as like a big trash bag, basically. Like if the ground is the trash can, then we have liners there to protect it. We have multiple clay layers that we'll talk about. And so we're putting all that trash into there. And when we say engineered, it's a big construction project. And then once we get all of that trash down in there, and yeah, everything is managed, so the stormwater is managed, then we cap it off over the top, kind of cover it all up and entomb it. And so this is, like I said, we'll go a little bit deeper into it, but this is why I always tell people, don't say the word dump around Heath, like, unless you want to see him get mad. Like, if you do, then it's kind of funny, but
Yeah.
We'll go into that.
Yeah. We don't like dumps. The trash bag analogy, I think you've been saving that, Jason. I ain't heard that yet, but I'll put that in my back pocket. I'll use that sometime. So appreciate that. All right. So just kind of in general, and it looks a little grainy here, so sorry about that. But just so we understand the flow of how things work right now. So currently what happens, or what used to happen, was it went from your homes or businesses to the illegal dump, right? Well, now in some places in Memphis, you have the option to recycle in yard waste. I think everywhere in Memphis, you may have the option to recycle now. And I believe they manage your yard waste too, and then waste for disposal, right? So you have your homes and businesses. We're going to put those in those cans. A recycling truck, a personal vehicle, or a garbage truck are going to take that waste, and they're going to take it to multiple facilities. So City of Memphis is working on a new compost facility. So that'll be coming right now. They're managing it in other ways. It may go to a transfer station. City of Memphis also does that, where that ends up going to one of the either the material recovery recycling facility or a waste to energy or landfill. And then from those locations, you have the outputs, which will be your compost facility, your material recycle and recovery facilities, your waste to energy facility, or landfill. So and that can be, waste to energy can be prior or post landfill. The ones, we actually have two of those in Memphis, and both of those are post landfill. So when the stuff comes in the landfill, then we have a gas to energy plant that takes care of that. Now, recycling, that's a commodity, right? So it goes to manufacturing. Composting may go to a farm or to your house if it's got yard, if you got mulch or items that can be used off that composting facility. And then some things end up going back to the store. So anyway, just kind of a pretty straightforward little diagram here. And this is actually from the EPA. So I'll give them a little credit for having this up on their website. But
and then just to give everybody an idea of our footprint here in Memphis as well. So Republic Services, of course, he talked about the company overall, but here in Memphis, we actually have about 200 employees. We have 2 hauling facilities. So we've got one on the south side of Memphis and one up north. We'll run about 80 routes a day from a hauling perspective. And then we have 3 landfills that we own here in the area. So we have South Shelby down in South Memphis, North Shelby up in Millington, and then we run the landfill in West Memphis, Arkansas, the Crittenden County landfill for Crittenden County. And then we also run the recycling facility for the city of Memphis. So all of the single stream, so the curbside collection, all the stuff that if you live in the city of Memphis and you have a city of Memphis recycle cart, you put out in there, that comes to us, as well as, I guess, if you have any other recycling for a single stream as well. So we are the only single stream provider. So all of that is coming to our location, but just wanted to give a overview of our footprint here as well.
Yeah. And we do have, West Memphis is not a big enough landfill, but both of those landfills in Memphis have gas to energy plants. So we're converting the methane. So the odor you smell in your trash can that you take to the landfill, we convert that essentially to a reusable, renewable natural gas. So that goes in the pipeline that's sold as natural gas. And it's, when it comes out of there, it's as clean as natural gas and has to have the mercaptan added. So you do have the odor. So, if you got, a natural gas leak. So that's a great thing to have in Memphis, and maybe one day we'll run some trucks off of it. Who knows? So, all right. So a lot of stuff going on this little diagram here, but this is what the overview of a landfill. So we'll just kind of go down the list here. So you got where everybody's going to work, right? All the guys are going to check in the office and the maintenance building where we're going to get our equipment going. In the landfill itself, you got the liner system we talked about, and that's so the refuse there they're talking about in this little. See if you can see my mouse here. And this right here would be your bottom liner. So you can see we're well above any groundwater level here. And then there's a compacted. There's a subgrade, which is the separation between the landfill and the groundwater. There's some plastic or compacted clay, which is something we pull out and actually put back to make sure it's going to help us in case our 60 mil HDPE, basically a really high density polyethylene plastic, if it were to have any issues, we would have a secondary layer. So it's a composite liner system. That's what we talk about here. On top of that liner, we have a leachate collection system, and that typically consists of some type of, you guys probably would most closely relate it to like a felt. And so it's like a woven geotextile, and typically has a drainage layer in between it. But then on top of that, we put a protective or a drainage layer, which would be anything. The protective layer can act as the drainage layer, which may be sand, can be on-site soils, but that will allow to protect from and drain the waste. And so when you put the waste in, you compact it, it's going to hit those drainage layers from any wastewater. It's going to go to a sump, and we're going to pump that out to a wastewater treatment facility.
So just to kind of put it in layman's terms as well, this is why I love having Heath here with like all the engineering knowledge. But so when I talk about that trash bag, that's what Heath's talking about with the layers there. So multiple layers of protection. So even in case one of those layers failed, you have 6 others. The HDP liner that Heath was talking about will last in excess of 400 years. So the testing only goes out to 400 years, but it is engineered to where it will last longer than that. And then you've also got those multiple layers below it. And when we talk about leachate is any liquid that touches the trash. So whether that's rainwater, whether that's anything else coming off of the trash, that is all collected. And so what he's talking about there with the drainage as well. So anything that gets into that trash bag, let's just call it that, any liquid that comes down is collected, and then we actually take that and treat that. So we're not only keeping that from the groundwater, we're actually taking that and pumping that out to make sure that there's no way that it could ever, penetrate those other layers too. So once again, everything is fully contained, which is what makes this an engineered sanitary page.
That's right. And as you can see with these little blocks, I don't know if I'm hoping you guys can see it, but these little blocks in here would be like our daily fill progression, right? So we're going to fill a little block. We're going to cover it with dirt. The reason it don't show any dirt between those little polygons is because we're going to come back and strip that so we don't waste a bunch of dirt in this airspace we've constructed. And the airspace would be what we're putting that's how you permit. That's what the state calls it. And as far as the area you're going to put your trash, and they permit you to a final elevation. And then you reverse that, and you'll see that on this right side here. Once you fill it to wherever the state says you can, you'll essentially reverse the order, right? So you got your refuse or your trash. You're going to cover it, put some more liner on it. You got a drainage layer for the rainwater, so we don't manage that as a wastewater. It's rainwater, and that runs off into a stormwater pond. Still tested, but it's not sent to a wastewater treatment plant. And then we have a vegetative cover, so it'd be covered. It look grass. I have some pictures of those in the presentation, but it'll be grass. It'll look like just a random mountain in some cases in Memphis, out in the middle of nowhere where you would never expect to see it, or in the city, and hopefully you never know it's there. So, but
Yep,
with all these,
that is our goal.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I was just going to reiterate that is our goal, and we do have closed landfills as well around Memphis. And the goal is that you would never know that they're there.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. We manage 2 closed landfills within the city limits, out by Shelby Farms. The county manages a landfill, and it's what they call the Penal Farm landfill out there across from Shelby Farms. So you see those little gas wells. That's what they are. What those are. These are what are being represented there. And again, we'll get into that piece. But in our case, and I mean, not even 10 years ago, these wells were drilled to maintain odor for compliance with the EPA. And now, rather than that gas flare station you see up here on the right, it's going to a gas to energy facility. So, and then as far as just showing how we protect the environment, they're very simple. So we're going to have stormwater drains around the site to go to a stormwater pond. We have discharge parameters within the city and within the county and state that we have to meet. And then we also have groundwater monitoring wells that are up gradient and down gradient. And we'll talk more about that as we get into the compliance piece of that. But a lot of stuff going on here. This is why we have engineers and general managers and a bunch of people running around here at each landfill we have. So we'll go to the next slide.
So when I came from PepsiCo to a trash company, or excuse me, environmental services, but we do trash now. Yeah, I was never expecting that there was this much engineering that went into a landfill. So it has been very fascinating from that perspective. But like Heath said, I mean, even things as simple as the daily cover to keep rats, pests, vectors away, to keep the odors of the trash down, but peeling that back to make sure that that layer of dirt doesn't sit there and act as a barrier for leachate, which is the stinky garbage juice or liquid that touches the trash. Make sure it doesn't come out the side of the hill and goes down to our sumps to where it can be pumped out. But if it's coming out the side, then that's where you could run into stormwater issues and things like that. So there's a lot of engineering that goes into making sure that everything is contained, stays contained. And like I said, the goal is that you would never know that it's there.
Yep. So just to kind of give you a visual. So this is this top center picture is actually the cell at the South Chevy landfill that we just finished this year. And this is what it looks like prior to placing trash. So these are leachate collection lines in here. They're actually protected right now with a plastic. Reason being is that woven drainage layer I was telling you about, it can have a UV degradation. So we try to protect that. We also try to protect it from having silt if they do have a rain event, from silting in and dealing with some just operational concerns there. But that's what it looks like. So pretty clean. And then we start putting waste in, and somehow it becomes this giant mountain that you see to this left. And this is actually one of our landfills, not here in Memphis, but another facility. And you see all those things we talked about. So you see stormwater infrastructure going down the hill. You see the berms to manage that stormwater. You see where they just were. So they're finishing up this area right here, and they've moved up top and they're filling in this area. So this, within a few months, this little area you see will look just like these slopes here. And it looks like you see all these little dots. Those are all gas wells collecting the methane. Nice perimeter road. You got fencing to catch any blown litter from, straight line winds, which we get in Memphis. We got litter fence, and so that's there's a lot going on in that picture there. But again, that's the purpose. I don't. If you haven't been to a landfill in 2024, it should look at least that good when you go in one. So the next step would be, once we get done there, we would close it. So you got two pictures of a closure here. And this one, the bottom one is actually a closure turf, but it's they close it with turf, and it'll stay green all year, right? It looks like to me they deal with sandy soils. That can be a challenge when closing a landfill. So that's probably the reason behind that. Or in a lot of cases, we're doing these solar panel covers. And so you still have access to the top. But what you see is they're placing these solar panels on the liner. And so we don't even use that vegetative cover. We just put solar panels on there and you would generate methane that would also be put into a gas plant and recycled. Now we're also using something that would be sitting there, not used, putting solar panels on it and generating power there. So a lot of options. Hopefully, moving forward, this is what you would see if you come to a landfill. So anything else to add on the design and construction, Jason?
Nope. Once again, we just wanted to go through this part and I think a lot of people, once again, why would you know about a landfill if you're not in this industry? Like I said, 4 years ago, I would have never known any of this. So it's nice to get this information out too. But we also just want to let people know that, your trash not only is well taken care of, but then also that gas to energy piece that Heath talked about, which is one of the innovations we've had in the past couple of years, actually still is converting over to that natural gas we pipe to MLGW. So we'll get into the recycling piece as well, which we run, but just know that even the things that can't be recycled are well taken care of.
That's right. All right. So daily operations. So the picture on the top left, that's actually South Chevy landfill. So that's in an article, I think actually in the Commercial Appeal. So that was a few years back. They got some, if you look it up, you should be able to find it. But that's how it kind of works, right? So you got this machine down here on the right, which would be your dozer. It's pushing the trash up to this packer. So the way we kind of just little statements we use just to kind of give you some insight would be dozers push, packers pack. So even though that compactor's got a fancy blade on the front, it wasn't designed for that. It wasn't made 110,000 pounds to push trash. So we have it packing up top. The dozer's feeding that compactor is the way we kind of talk about it. And at the end of the day, all this will be covered. You do see some trash and trash bags over there staged to the left. That will be put in there. And the plan would be that packer is riding on top of that trash. So once he gets done for the day, anywhere he goes in that work area, you're seeing daylight under that machine between those wheels, or even from the front or the back. And that means we've compacted that trash, and we're utilizing the airspace we talked about well, and we're managing the business that we have. And what that looks like is we're going to pack somewhere in the ballpark of 1,500 to 2,000 pounds into a 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot box. So it's so 20, that'd be 27 cubic feet, or yeah. So, and that's kind of what we're doing. So that's a lot of weight to be going in that little box, but that's what we want to do. And then we're trying to, project for the future. So the one on the bottom right is our Apex landfill. That's actually in Vegas, and they rail a bunch of trash in. They got these crazy tippers. We don't do that in Memphis. Glad we don't do that in Memphis, but it's they take a lot of waste. So they're taking waste from a bunch of other states as well. So, they're out there in Vegas taking care of the consumer. And again, just as this Fox 5 report said, they're going to be doing that for the next 300 years if that's what it needs. But again, as we'll talk about, the goal is that 300 years turns to 500 years. And the North Shelby, the landfills we have in Memphis, just to kind of put it in perspective, we got 150 years of life at the North Shelby landfill and about 50 at South Shelby, and just a few years, 7 years over at the West Memphis landfill, but it's got opportunity for expansion. But when I started here at Republic, we had about 100 years of life at North Shelby. And then then it's grown because we became better at certain things, finding other ways to get rid of materials. Also, a lot of companies going to zero waste or zero landfill. That's changed things as far as the tonnage is coming in, and that's okay. That's why we say we want to manage everything you need to get rid of or recycle, because we're also in those industries trying to make these landfills last longer. So that's our goal, and this is the equipment used to do it. So, and I didn't really explain that, but that on the bottom right, that's a tipper, and it's just bringing it in from that one's coming in from Vegas, and they got to unhook it from the truck and they dump it, and then because it's so much waste, we actually do have to push with a packer there. So they'll push it with a packer to another packer that's packing. So it's just a large volume. So carrying about 4 times or two to 3 times as much as a normal like trash truck you may see. So anyway, anything there, Jason?
Nope. I think that was a good segue. Like you said, we are still going to manage it either way, but we would much rather see as much as we can come out of the landfills, especially the things that can be recycled, and head over to the recyclables.
Yeah, it's not very fun. It's not a very good day as a manager when you see somebody bring in a whole container full of cardboard and you're like, man, you could have we need to turn that around. You need to go take that to the recycle center. I don't know why you're here paying to get rid of cardboard. So
it hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we do all that packing, we do all that fancy work. And what we end up having at the end of the day is actually what I'm going to do is go to this first. I'm going to back up to it. So prior to these gas plants, as part of the compliance, we managed well fields. And that's what you see on the top left. That's a gas well. It's got the ability to take a pump. In this case, it didn't need a pump to pump any liquids that were in it out, but they got the access here, and that would be like a pump. That'd be a force main for the liquids it pumped out, and then there's air. So we run everything pneumatically, so it's all air-powered pumps. And then at least every other week, if not every week, somebody is physically coming out here and tuning this little valve and adjusting this well to make sure we're not pulling in ambient air. The purpose of that is to assure we don't start an underground fire by introducing oxygen. So there are other things once you get gas plants, and I'll get into that. But generally, the idea is maintaining flow to let the methane get out, but not introducing anything else into the landfill. And then we talked about groundwater a little bit. So this would be your normal well. So they do drill these wells, and in some cases, like this well above, it may be for methane or leachate extraction, but it's kind of the same thought process. So you're going to have a perforated pipe, you're going to have some type of granular material around it, and you're going to have a seal at the top that would be bentonite. Bentonite's just a fancy word for clay. So it's just a material that doesn't let water soak through very easily. And that's bentonite's actually a clay out of the Northeast. So anyway, and then you'll have cover over that. You'll have a cap and a lock and access to that for people that come in. We typically sample those every quarter, but what that tells us is we know we put groundwater wells all the way around the landfill. We know the direction of the flow across, and then we can say, okay, here's what's up gradient, or before it gets to the landfill, here's what's happening down gradient below the landfill. And so we can tell if anything's getting introduced by the landfill. And that just gives us an idea, because sometimes we'll have things come up. For instance, like iron is usually a big one. Iron can be naturally occurring in clay, and you may find it in your groundwater due to ambient air getting in that tube that we're talking about here with a sample. And it's just something that naturally occurs. It's not bad, it's just different. And so you would expect that possibly to see it. Sometimes you don't see it in these wells downstream. But anyway, just kind of giving you an idea there. And then the closed landfill piece over here was just kind of giving another glimpse of all these compliance wells we got in place. And we got probes, and we actually got probes for methane, and we got probes for groundwater. And that tells us if anything's getting out of there, whether by gas migration outside the landfill or liquids. So let's back up one. So we did all that before just for compliance, but now we have these facilities. So this is actually the facility at South Shelby. It's operated by Archaea, and it's owned by British Petroleum, so BP. They take all of the methane out of that landfill, and they process it, and then they end up putting it in MLG&W's pipeline. And then this is just a different view of that. So that's all right there, just right off the side of South Shelby landfill there. But it's pretty neat process. This is just one of our other facilities down here on the left. But what they're doing is they go through there, all these fancy vessels, as they like to term them. I'll just call them a tank, but they'll call them a vessel. So these vessels change the pressure of that gas coming out of the landfill, and it extracts anything it doesn't want in there. And that's to get it in the pipeline. And that process cleans it up enough that it's as clean as natural gas. It goes through their building, does a couple more things. MLG&W takes it, and they add the mercaptan themselves again, which is the odor, the rotten egg smell, and then it's distributed to the community. In Memphis right now, it's probably a little more than this, but we're in excess of 40,000 the equivalent of 40,000 gallons of gasoline a day is what we produce in natural gas. So if Jason would run his fleet of trucks off of it, we wouldn't be using that gasoline or diesel in the city. So anyway, any comments on that, Jason?
Nope, that was what I was going to ask too, was just the conversion there. I always forget for some reason, but I just know that it's a lot. But yeah, so that, once again, cleaning up the gas that's coming out of the bottom of the landfill, or coming out of the landfill, and then actually beneficially reusing that as well.
Mm-hmm. So that's helping reduce our carbon footprint. I didn't mention that. That's also allowing a reuse of that methane, and it's just good for the environment overall. We're just not burning that gas, right? We're converting it. They do have all their own permits. They get permitted through the county, actually, is how the state designates that. So I didn't really get into that piece, but EPA has a set of rules. They designate it to the state, and the state has the option to designate it to the county. And in Tennessee, that's how it works. So the state dictates kind of how it goes, but then the county has their own set of ways to manage the air permitting, and that's only air permitting. So the county manages air permitting, the state manages the landfill compliance piece. So the groundwater and the leachate, that would all come from the state, but then how we monitor these wells and how we put the wells in is managed by the county here. So, and it's actually the health department. So, all right, recycling. Jason, you want to kick this one off, or you want me to do it?
Yeah, no. So that's what we were talking about earlier. Was so that's where the waste is going now. But as much as we can pull out, we would love to send that over to the recycling facility and reuse that. And we'll get a little bit deeper into it. But I think the thing that struck me the most about recycling, especially with a lot of kind of how it works, is I never realized, like, coming from manufacturing, that basically we run a manufacturing facility with recycling. So all the raw materials that we get in would be the single stream, the cardboard, everything else that customers send over to us. So let's take that single stream for instance. We get that dumped. We've got a process to where we have sorters and everything going through it, and we separate each of those individual things out. And we'll talk more about that piece too. But those individual things, so whether that be plastic, aluminum, tin, all of those individual things are the products that we sell. So we bale that up and send that out to usually third parties. Once again, we'll talk about that too. And the third parties will use those products to make something to sell that to an end user that will beneficially reuse that in their process. So that's kind of the way to think about a recycling facility overall. And that's what we're doing there at the Ferris View facility. So with that, Heath, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, no, it's good. So just kind of giving you a visual of what happens, right? So we're going to go out here. We're going to pick up a container. This little container right here says recycling, just so you know. And they're only going to pick up that can. They're not picking up the trash can together, as some think. And they're going to take all those recycles and they're going to back into a MRF. This is not our MRF, but it is a MRF. And that's what it looks like. It looks like a big pile of trash. But all I see in there is plastics, paper, and probably some aluminum, maybe a little bit of glass. But that's how it's going to look. We're going to take that. We're going to put it on the line. It's going to run up. And the first line of defense, as we would call it, for things you shouldn't recycle are going to be these people standing on each side. So they're going to have bins. Some of them may have bins for certain things like big pieces of cardboard or something, depending on how the system works. They're going to hand separate. Then once it's all separated, it'll go into separate bins.
And then Heath, I can tell you, we can probably just let people know. So you cannot recycle deer. You can't recycle garden hoses, bowling balls, shot puts,
guns.
Guns, can't do that. And so when Heath talks about a lot of those people that are kind of on the first line of defense, you would be shocked at the amount of things that we see, that they've kind of grabbed off the line, thankfully, that didn't get into the equipment. But there are a lot of things that cannot be recycled. But
car batteries.
Batteries, yep.
Golf clubs, golf balls, probably outfit everybody on the call with a full set of any golf club you need. It may be from the 60s, but you would have every club you needed. Trying to think of what else we get through there. But yeah, it's really random. Computers, which are recyclable, not just at the MRF. So again, just, that's one of the reasons we give these type presentations, is just for education, let people know what we're trying to do, because we can be better. And Jason, you may have to correct me, but we think we're getting maybe 10% on the recyclables here, but we would like to push to 20. I mean, more than that, but I mean, the goal would be to try to find a way to get to 20 to 25%, right?
No, you bring up a good point, Heath, and that was one that I didn't touch on, and that's the diversion rate for Memphis overall. So we work with Clean Memphis as well, and we sit on the circular economy panel here in Memphis, and we're estimating, like Heath said, probably we're only capturing about 10% of the recyclables in this market overall. 25% would be our target. And then 50% would be considered world-class. So when we say we have a lot of opportunity here, especially when it comes to the education piece, that is one of the things that we're very passionate about, and definitely love the opportunity to just get to talk about it or even show people. So, that there are tours available, and we'll talk about that here in a bit too. But yeah, great point, Heath.
Yeah. And so all of those processes happen in the top left. What you're seeing is what we're going to send out to the buyers in the market. So that's our product there. And some of it here, like this is not clean cardboard, right? This would be mixed paper, most likely, because it's got a lot of other things in it. And then over here, you got our plastics is what you're seeing. And there's some more mixed paper, maybe some white papers back here in the back. But anyway, kind of the general layout of what we got going on. So
Heath, one more thing I did want to add. So you guys will probably hear us use the term MRF interchangeably, but that is materials recovery facility. So when we're talking about the MRF, we're talking about the recycling center. So sometimes we have a bad habit of using those acronyms and terms, and then you forget, like, oh yeah, we're talking to people that have no clue what we're talking about. But if you hear MRF, that's materials recovery facility or the recycling center.
Yeah. So this is all from our website, and it's pretty. I mean, if you don't do anything else, and that's kind of what we've talked to Clean Memphis about, the center diagram is kind of what we're looking for. So if you're confused, I think if you stick to these 4 things, everything's going to be fine, which is flattened cardboard and metal cans, plastic bottles and jugs, and paper. We're working on options. Glass does come in. We do have a glass breaker, but we're working on options for glass. But right now, like, these 4 things would kind of be our bread and butter of how we operate our facility. The sign on the left is, do not bag your recyclables. Put it straight in the bin, or put it in a bin and bring it to us in your car, or however you want to do that. But we don't have a debagger. There's some facilities that do, but even Walmart sacks, those are probably some of our worst enemies. They're just as bad as a garden hose, because everything in there spins. And so when it spins, it gets a garbage bag or a plastic bag wrapped around it, and we have to shut the system down to try to do it, which just causes downtime and makes it harder for us to get things recycled.
Yep, and he brings up a great point too. So even in your cart outside for your curbside carts, so no bags, just dump everything directly into the cart. And yeah, to Heath's point, what we call screens are really they look like big meat grinders, but the cardboard and the papers and all that float across where they should, and then those screens help to separate that. And so you start getting plastic bags, or, like you said, the Walmart sacks, garden hoses, anything like that, and you are disrupting that process, and it could cause a lot of headache. It is a pain to get in there and get those bags out of there.
Yeah. So, and then I'll talk about what never to recycle, but on the right is myth. Plastic doesn't really get recycled. Plastic bottles, jugs, tubs, are widely accepted for recycling and in demand. So again, depending on the time, it may be cardboard, it may be plastics, but for sure, aluminum cans, cardboard, paper, and plastics are the commodities we want to be pushing.
So now is one of the time I get to talk about something that we're very proud of, and do a little bit of a commercial too. But when we talk about those third parties that we're sending materials to, and they're making them for the end users, plastics is one of those that we get a lot of questions about. Well, Public Services has actually set up our own polymer centers. So we have the first one running up in Vegas now. So all of those plastics that we are now capturing at our facilities are going to go to these polymer centers. We're actually processing those plastics, separating them from colors and whites, cutting them down and sanitizing them, cutting them down into reusable flakes. And those flakes are going to go to end users. We've already had companies like Coke, I believe PepsiCo's already signed on, Owens Corning. A lot of those flakes can go back into the materials used in packaging, or this process was just approved to be for food grade use as well. So even when I worked at Pepsi, it's kind of neat to see it come full circle now, but our bottles didn't come as full on bottles. So they came as preforms. So little bitty, like almost bottle shaped, but they're probably like no bigger than the size of your finger. And we'd actually blow them through a blow mold and form them into the bottles there. So think about those kinds of plastic flakes being able to be reused to a certain percentage in those preforms. So really kind of closing the loop on the plastics recycling. And then we can say that all of our material that we're recycling now stays here in America. So the recycling industry had changed back in 2017 with what was called China Sword. Pretty much China and a lot of the Asian countries stopped accepting recyclables from America. And so that really changed the industry. So we were one of the few companies that were prepared to weather that storm and kind of survive with recycling. So that was when you saw a lot of recycling facilities close, especially the smaller ones. And so now that we've weathered that, we've set up our own distribution here in America. And now we're vertically integrating to make sure that we can send those plastics to ourselves, process them, and then send them to those end users. So, like I said, nice little commercial.
Yeah, no, that's good. So on the top right, and these are what we consider like kind of new age recycle centers or polymer centers. So the top right is a polymer center. The top left is inside of a new MRF. And then the bottom one is the Vegas MRF. And that one, I'm pretty sure they got it's running 100% on renewable energy. Is that right, Jason?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So it's neutral in its energy use, and it processes all the things. We also use, like in some of these newer facilities, we're using robotics and sorting of that nature to assist in the work being done. So it's AI is used as well. So
Yep. And
it's
then
technology.
just to let you guys know too, so our facility here has been here in Memphis. So it is a city-owned facility. We do run it for the city of Memphis, but that facility has been there since about '95. So it's a little bit older, needs a little bit of love. But we are putting some love into it this year. So we did just get a second baler, excuse me, that we installed a few weeks ago to give us some redundancy, allow us to run single stream and cardboard at the same time. And we are putting new optical sorters in as well. So updated technology like Heath was talking about, and the optical sorters are really cool. So as things go by, they pass high-speed cameras, and those cameras connect to little almost like air jets that shoot pieces of plastic or paper or whatever you've kind of had set in different directions. So that kind of sorts it as well. So we're getting two upgraded optical sorters installed within the next few weeks as well, to kind of help with the changing technology and help us be a little more efficient. We're investing about $2 million in that facility this year.
Yeah, those new optical sorters are needed because of the change in density of like the plastic you see in your water bottles. They'll crunch up a lot easier now. Same thing with Amazon's boxes. They're not really square when you get them anymore. They're kind of rounded because they're thinner. So, just a thought there. So, Jason, I had a few slides. I think we'll just mention it pretty quick here, but
Yeah.
as far as outreach in the community, charitable foundation, neighborhood focus is what we're looking for. Outreach fund and community outreach. Did you have anybody you wanted? Yeah, here we are. The list of people we partner with, maybe. And
yeah, so like I said, Clean Memphis, Binghamton Development Corporation. We do a good bit with Make-A-Wish, the Women's Foundation for a Greater Memphis. So we are definitely proud of that and our connection to the community. So whether it's BFI, Allied Waste, or Republic, which now is all the same company, we've been in Memphis for over 40 years now. So we definitely appreciate the Wolf River Conservancy inviting us tonight as well, and would love to partner with you guys anytime too. So thanks for having us tonight.
Yeah. So again, just kind of going through these here at the end. That's about all we got. I guess I can
Q&A.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Let me get my video up. Thank you so much, both you guys. It was so interesting, and I'm sorry I'm in the dark, but that's okay. So we've already got a couple of really good questions, and I encourage everyone out there to add some more. Here's one that I hear all the time. Recently, we have heard that recycling and household trash are being transported to the landfill, and that there is no recycle facility in operation. Is there any truth to this?
Heath, let me take this one, please.
Yeah.
No, and it is very funny because, and I shouldn't say funny, but during COVID, we had staffing issues, just like every other company. But at the same time, the city had some massive staffing issues as well. So because of their staffing issues, for about 2 months, they were unable to put a focus on recycling. And this was during the height of the pandemic, like that first wave. So after they were back to normal levels of staffing, they did restart bringing stuff back to the facility. But that obviously hurt us because we still had staff there. We were still kind of relying on that work. We were able to weather that storm as well. But that only lasted for about 2 months because of that staffing. But when I say that it's kind of funny, I was taking my recycling out to the curb, and I had one of my neighbors. This was probably about 2 years ago, maybe. So maybe 2 years after all of that went down. And she told me that same thing. She's like, hey, that doesn't get recycled, right? Like that just goes to the landfill. And I was like, let me tell you. So 15 minutes later, after I had given her that presentation, I can tell you guys that no, this is why we love to give tours. We love to do this here. And we want to show people what we do. We want to open it up. So the curbside, everything that you put out, whatever you are recycling is actually being recycled. It comes to our facility, it runs through, and we have the capacity to do much more than we're doing right now. So we could run a second shift or third shift if we needed to, if we get the volume there. And this is how we feel like we can affect that, is by getting that education out there, but also just letting people know this is how the whole process works. Obviously recycling is a business, and that's why I say it's more like manufacturing, and that we separate everything, and the finished product that we're sending out, that's kind of how we're making the money there, is by selling that. But at the same time, that is what is happening. And so that's why I'm happy about the polymer centers as well, because I know there's a lot about plastics recycling right now too, but I can confidently say that our plastics are being recycled, and they're being recycled right here in the US. So I hope that's a long-winded answer, but I am still shocked at how much I hear that. And this is why, Heath, me, Dallas is our operations there. We just want to jump up and down screaming and say, like, no, come over here, we'll show you.
Great. So recycling is happening. We can be confident.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Heath, did you want to add to that before I ask the next?
No, I think that's good. I mean, we're doing it. Let's come see it.
Okay,
We can prove it.
here's a question about e-waste. Can the city do an e-waste recycling day for all the electronics?
And that is a good question for the city. Like Heath said, we do have the capability to do e-waste recycling. So we've had people come even to my office and drop computers off. If we take car batteries over to the recycling facility, we have outlets for those things as well. And with the acquisition of US Ecology, we can do those e-waste recyclings. We can talk to the city and see if there's anything that we could do, like a bulk e-waste recycling day or some kind of collection as well. But right now, the city is the one that does all of the hauling within the city of Memphis. So they're picking up not only the trash carts, but the recycling carts as well.
Okay. All right. This person says, hi, I came in the meeting late, so I apologize if this was addressed at the beginning. Where in Memphis is there composting? I used to rely on Atlas Organics and would love to know an alternative company. Thank you.
Yeah, so the city is actually working on that. So we don't have a composting facility. Republic doesn't here, but they are working on a contract and trying to get that service back up. I'm not aware of others, Jason. I don't know if you are, but Atlas was the company that was running that initially.
Yeah, so Atlas had bought out the compost ferry, and then Atlas actually pulled out of this market. They were in negotiations with the city to run that composting facility that the city's setting up, that they're looking at running themselves now. But I will say that under the Clean Memphis umbrella, they have Project Green Fork. So they are focused on reducing food waste, but also composting as well. So I can try to send some contact information over if I'm sure you guys might have it too. But yeah, Janet Boscarino with Clean Memphis is very in tune with composting options.
Would you also would you encourage composting at home where possible?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's something that even my wife has pushed. I know the compost ferry, like the owner actually lived in our neighborhood, and so it disrupted us a little bit whenever we did that. But we will compost and give it to our neighbors to use in their gardens as well. So a lot of neighbors with chickens and home gardens, but definitely would encourage that, and we can try to find what resources we've got if somebody's looking for a collection as well.
Right. I guess a natural question to follow up on that is what percentage of landfill waste is food in Memphis?
Oh man, that is a great question, and that's one that we should have the answer to right now, but I will tell you a lot.
Yeah, it's
And
high.
Heath, I'll let
It's
you
a,
expand on that.
yeah, I was just gonna say it's a high percentage waste stream for us. And again, most of the time, that's what contributes to all of those things, the odors, the things, right? So um, we get a lot of food waste, a lot of food waste. There's a lot of
And so
waste in the food industry. So
that's one of the reasons why we're working with those. And once again, I feel like I need to call Janet after this and tell her to, you know, loop me in on some of this partnership piece. But no, that's one of the reasons. They're actually doing a great job already. So we're basically just going to restructure some things so that they're coming to our recycling facility instead of the landfill. But they were asking about food waste options. And so we're going to partner there as well because they want that for their distribution centers too. But when you think about, you know, all the food distribution we have here, some of the manufacturing facilities, and then of course, just, you know, the grocery stores and things like that, it is a lot, but that's a good question. I'll find out what percentage.
Yeah, it's just knowing that it's a huge amount and that it would be great to reduce that amount would be.
yeah. The city is doing a plan, just so you guys know, the city is doing a plan. They have to do it as part of their the state mandated, but a solid waste plan to try to understand what is in their waste streams, not just going to Republic, but just within the city, what waste streams there are, where they're going, and how they can divert those from landfills. So I'm not sure if they've got that off the ground yet, but it is in the works to try to get a better handle on what's going on. And again, we're just a small piece of that puzzle, right? We're managing a piece of it, but everybody's got to be in the game to make it happen. So.
Okay, next question. We have to pay for recycling. When we checked with the city, they would not answer us about where recycling goes. This was about 6 weeks ago, not during COVID. Tell the city to tell people about recycling and where it goes. They are not answering people, which makes us believe it's not being recycled. So where can I now recycle since I can't do it from home?
So I would be curious too. So if they are outside of where the city would collect, you know, that's something that we could definitely point some resources towards, like as far as residential recycling goes, but they can bring it down to our facility. And Heath, if you maybe, I don't know if you got the address on one of those slides there, but I mean, we have people come and you know, they can drop off at the facility too. But at the same time, I can tell you that if you have a City of Memphis card and it is a recycling card, it is coming to the facility at 3197 Ferris View Boulevard. Yeah. That is where all of the residential recycling is going, and those commercial routes are going there as well, and then some of the other larger customers we have.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, if anybody would like to see it, we would love to have you.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, Jason, Heath?
There you go.
Yeah. Hey, Kathy, you froze for a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let me read this question again. For residents living outside city limits in unincorporated Shelby County, how can we recycle? My trash service currently does not offer this service.
No, I would say that you could bring it to our facility, unless I don't know of anybody doing subscription service in the rural area. So your best bet is probably to bring it into the city to that 3197 Ferris View Boulevard.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, for like it is difficult, even for us. Like as you start to route, you gotta try to make sure that you've got a good concentration of customers. And so right now we are trying to work on solutions for the more rural customers. We do still offer it to some of the closer municipalities, but the participation rate going up can definitely help that piece. But to Heath's point, you can always feel free to, even if you have a stockpile or if you have enough to fit on the trailer on the back of the truck, excuse me, you can bring those things to us.
Okay.
And then I did want to say too, Heath, we probably want to talk to the city just to make sure they're giving out, like, everybody knows about the right information to give out too. I don't want
Right.
anyone thinking like, oh, we called the city and they're like, yeah, we don't know where it is.
Yeah, and
We'll address that part too.
we're working with them on education as well, and we're educating their drivers. We're educating the people they bring in that work for the city, so they know what's really going on, and that will expand in the future. I'll say, as we work with the city to make improvements at the Smurf. It needs to happen because that's we got to increase participation, and we got to get the right things to the recycle center, and that's only going to happen through everybody having the knowledge. So. And we're doing that. We're doing that in a lot of different ways, as in this meeting today.
Yeah. Okay. Do all of our Shelby County schools give you recyclables, or do they need support and education to encourage them to do that?
Currently, we are not doing recycling at Shelby County schools right now. So we do have partners that are working on that. I know there are a few grants that have come to Memphis. One, this was kind of how we met the Wolf River Conservancy as well, is we were doing some teacher boot camps in partnership with some of the local nonprofits, just to kind of teach the teachers teach the students go home and teach the families. But right now, I believe it has been more of a resource / participation that's kind of been holding that piece back. So I will tell you that we have been talking to some of the Shelby County schools. We are trying to figure out the best options to be able to start providing that. But we have, a lot of kids that would definitely be interested, a lot of teachers that would be too. We just kind of got to get that project moving.
Okay. Where in Memphis can you recycle plastic bags?
That's a tough one. I don't know.
It is a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure if anyone has. So that's the other part about recycling as well. And I know Heath had kind of mentioned it earlier, but really it's about the end users too, and someone who has a beneficial reuse for it. Otherwise, nobody's going to want to buy it. So I don't know of anybody right now that is recycling, other than some of the grocery stores, like a Kroger, or I think some at Target will have a place where you can return bags, and the companies themselves will recycle them.
Yeah, and what they're doing is they're bailing them, like we talked about, bailing themselves and then sending them to a facility.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what we run into. And like Heath was talking about the glass earlier, it's not that we can't recycle it. It's just right now, and there are some processes that are coming up that are pretty promising. So using glass and road base, kind of refining it. That's what we do right now at our landfills. Is for landfill roads, we'll use it for road base. But there's a process now where they're kind of refining it into little, almost like lava rocks, and it's been approved to be used as road base in repaving roads. And so with that, we might see that become more of a valuable commodity. More people go into that space, but that's kind of the issue with the plastic bags right now. We actually still have the capability at our recycling facility to do it. It's just, when you kind of focus on that, or if you spend all that time and effort on it and nobody needs it, that's the problem that you run into.
Okay, I live in an apartment building which doesn't have recycling. How can I participate in recycling either on my own, or is there a connection with recycling in the University of Memphis?
You know what? And
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm at the law school, and we only have paper recycling and plastic bottles.
I was going to say too, the other thing that we forgot to mention too, Heath, is that the city of Memphis is actually working with a few local nonprofits, and they're setting up convenience centers as well. So I do need to check. I know there's one that's going to be towards North Memphis at this point. That's going to be the pilot, but the plan is to have convenience centers around for exactly what this question was for. So for the people in apartments, or for others that may live in the city but don't have recycling options available to them.
Okay, Jason, you cut out there.
Yeah, sorry, there was a Mustang going by me.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that we got the gist of your answer. So here's a good question. Where do all the leaves go? The leaves that people bag up, I guess.
They should be going to a compost facility, but I would think right now, if they're shut down, some of those maybe end up coming. That's, why we're working with the city to try to understand what they're going to do with it. But in a lot of cases, if they're loading that stuff up, it could be in the landfill, it could be in other locations, but it's probably a multitude of answers because there's not a single location for them to go into if it's a single source.
Yeah, and we'll take them in our landfill as well. So sometimes if there's tree cutting projects going down or after a storm, some of those tree limbs and leaves and things like that will come to us. Or if there's a big bulk day that happens, they'll bring them to the landfill. But yeah, to Heath's point, those things could be composted, but right now they're most likely going to the landfill.
Yeah, I hope that changes. Do you want to talk about extended producer responsibility laws around the US? And if you think that will increase recycling around the country? I don't have any input.
I am not necessarily educated enough probably to discuss what the actual laws would be around that right now. But I in theory, I do believe that would increase participation and increase the incentive, to use more recycled materials. But Heath, maybe you know more than I do, but I'm probably not.
No, I mean, I think, yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but not enough to speak intelligently, most likely. But again, I think it could help. But right now, the focus would be us trying to get people educated so we can get that going now, right? So that takes a while, most likely, to get those things going. So our focus is getting with kids, getting with groups like this to educate and try to get it going now so we can make a difference.
And that is a good point. Yeah, don't forget, everyone, that we have a ton of opportunity already here, and some low-hanging fruit that we can, with education, even in our community, we can make a massive impact on that too. But I think that is a good question. And one more time, well, if you wouldn't mind sending me these questions afterwards too, I'd like to follow up on a few.
Well, I will try. Yeah, I'll do my best.
Okay. Yeah, but that one especially.
Okay, the extended producer responsibility laws. Okay. Just a couple more questions. For high value recyclables like metal cans, for example, that end up at the landfill, and I'm sure there are a lot of them, do they get diverted to recycling facilities?
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, unfortunately, pretty much once it gets into the landfill, it's not going to be diverted at that point. To Heath's point about when we see those things, I was at our Crittenden County landfill the other week and saw a full load of cardboard and pallets being dumped into the landfill. Now that did lead to a meeting with a customer because I immediately texted the rep who I knew was over the account that was bringing that truck in. And we went back and met with them, and now we're discussing recycling options. But to that point, once it gets into the landfill, usually it's not going to be diverted at that point. But that's where we'll try to find out. Like if you had a whole load of aluminum cans going into a landfill, Heath, me, Dallas, somebody's going to find out where that came from, because that's, like you said, those are high value materials. But any of the recyclables that we see, that's where we try to get ahead of it the next time with the education piece.
And there is, just so we're clear, once it comes in a landfill, there are scavenging laws. We by law can't start pulling things out of the trash, and that's there's some legalities behind that, but there's some other things there too. And so again, once it comes in, we got to take it, but we do go back and try to talk to the customer to try to get that stopped. So
okay, well, that's good. And then last question is about construction and demolition debris. Where does that go? Does that take up space in your landfill, or does it go to a different kind of landfill? Okay.
Yeah, it can come into our landfill, but there are some C&D landfills around the Memphis area. But yes, we get C&D waste.
And there are ways that we can beneficially reuse that as well. So Heath will sometimes, depending on the material, we could use that for road base too, or use that to kind of pad things out as we're working out there. But that's not going to be considered recycling. Yeah, that's still going to the landfill.
Right. Okay, and then the follow-up to that was, does the Mid-South need new C&D landfills? Or maybe you don't know.
No, I don't think there's a need for that right now. I think that those things have been discussed, but really the city, not the city, the states, the EPA, they don't want to increase footprints if it's not necessary, if the waste can be managed. So there is a need assessment that occurs when that happens. And right now the need says they have plenty of landfills.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Because I imagine a landfill is an expensive thing to build. Not how much does it cost to build a landfill?
You want to know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So so per acre, it's about, you might as well just say it's $400,000 an acre. And then it
Wow.
costs that again to close it. So you're $800,000 in that same acre essentially. And that's just the construction and closure. That doesn't include the gas systems, the monitoring, all of those things. And then you got to manage it for 30 years after you close it. So you got to factor all those costs in, where you're talking in the new age modern landfills, it's millions upon millions of dollars to run and operate these landfills.
And then
Yeah.
Heath, if you want to get into the permitting before you even ever start that too, that might be a good thing to add.
Yeah, you'll get no revenue. You'll have no revenue, and you have a 3-year process of where you can expect to spend a minimum of $500,000 on engineering and permitting, and you never even made a dime yet, and you hope it gets approved. And then if it doesn't get approved, well, you still owe $500,000, but then it can go in excess of that as well. But it's a lot of work that goes into trying to make it happen.
Yeah, so it behooves all of us to make the landfills we've got last as long as possible, like this.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, guys, this has been just a wonderful, so interesting, really great presentation. I think a lot of people feel that way. And I hope maybe we can entice you to come back and speak with our folks again sometime.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having us. And definitely we would love to do that again.
Yeah. Thank you, Heath. Thank you, Jason. I'm going to turn you over to Eric so he can tell us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Heath and Jason. That was incredibly informative, and I certainly learned a lot. I think that our viewers did as well. Some of our staff were texting and saying this is one of their favorite presentations we've ever done. So congratulations on a great presentation. But this has been really, really instructive in just how essential Republic Services and our landfill partners are to the waste cycles of our community, and how essential your work is to keeping the land that we value so much clean and the environment healthy. So thank you for that. I want to just wrap this up quickly and say a thank you to Republic Services. So thank you to Heath and Jason. And if you are interested in any other of the work that the Wolf River Conservancy does, please visit our website at wolfriver.org. Again, a reminder, we're doing our 4th restoration series event this Saturday out at the Shady Grove trailhead of the Wolf River Greenway. And all the details can be found in the calendar section of our website at wolfriver.org. But thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.